So this is an example of the decortication marker, and we go across, and this is what we would like to see, that bell-shaped curve. And again, the eyes closed condition. If you did something else, an eyes open condition might show that, but it might not. But eyes closed, we're talking about eyes closed rest. What we do is we take this is raw data, and we actually compare it to the healthy group, and we get this comparison of Hertz in terms of its normality. Pink is excess, and the blue is deficit, and green is the color we want. Yellow is kind of okay, it's high normal. The reason why you see this term Hertz approximates years of life, I want to talk about that in another PowerPoint, another video. We do know that the peak frequency increases half a hertz a year as you're in childhood, and if you actually look at the average frequency, in that, using entropy as your measure, the relative magnitude can work as well, pretty okay. It increases what about 1 hertz per year. Literally, our brain increases its speed of processing 1 hertz per year till it hits a sort of range right around before puberty, and it usually stays there around 10 hertz is our goal, because that's what most people are, around 10 hertz, and so it's the most popular speed. And it's just like driving on the highway. It's more efficient if you synchronize with everyone around you. You have less friction in your communication. You can think, well, why is the brain doing this? It's like a tree ring. It's going 1 hertz, one more cycle per year. It's one more cycle per second. Where's it getting second? Well, the seconds are coming from the heartbeat. It's the brain is trying to find a balance between the heartbeat rhythms and the yearly rhythms. Yearly rhythms could be from seasons, could be from holidays, whatever it is, the yearly, how you know that years are happening. And it's a messy system, obviously, but I do believe we see it. Our peak frequency burst out the realm much faster than 1 frame per second. But our general energy is 1 frame per second the first year of life, and 2 frames. It moves up approximately that way. And that's the reason why we talk about these as years, and how blue is social exclusion. Pink, you do excessive amount of yourself when you feel your relationship usually with your mother or maternal figure is being threatened. You do more yourself. That's what we see. And usually it's been reasonably confirmed. It's not a perfect science here, obviously, on Hertz equals years, but approximates it. Okay, so what we do see, and again, regardless if you want to do the Hertz versus years, because this would now be the kid, this kid's only 8 years old. He's right here. Yeah, this is his complement of the future. Not underdeveloping because he feels so excluded. He has what I call a solo act, making himself excluded. Solo act is this deficit of the beta range. It's that beta deficit, which I showed you earlier, as not much height out here in all these areas. And that beta deficit, especially around ×2 his peak, that shows that he is under ascribing agency to others. Not a team player, not a member of a team, not feeling that other people are backing him up. He has to do everything. Usually kids like this that can be very anxious or very stern, and that's the case in Stanley's case. Okay, so we're looking at, that was this activity, looking at measure activity. Now, when you have good activity, doesn't necessarily mean you have good connectivity, and vice versa. Connectivity, it can be it's a measure of maturity at some level. They both have a maturity sequence to them. He is the same individual, perfect measure of dominant frequency table, but you can see there's some yellows in there. We don't want yellows in Theta Unity. So now the interesting thing was, we started off looking at up to 30 parameters, and we pulled out the parameters that any parameter that really didn't give us location information on the head, like the whole head would turn blue or pink, or whatever, was not a good measure. Those are thrown away, but sometimes they could still be what we call trait parameters. But just looking at eventually just through looking at cases, we used to look at Theta Unity, Delta Unity, Alpha Coma, and Alpha Coherence. Those are the measures that seem to be reasonably reliable. At least some of them we're looking at. Everyone else was looking at Alpha Coherence, so we looked at it. We looked at Alpha Coma because that was the first thing we were interested in. And it's good for states. And when we started doing analysis, it was all about moment-to-moment changes of someone's attention, and Alpha Coma is very good at detecting that. But we want traits now. And so if you actually, I did a measure data analysis on myself I had 4 replications, and just saw which variable gave the least variability. And Theta Unity, this did it mathematically, and I've seen it in other ways as well. I mean, it popped out as the most reliable measure. And, before you can be valid, you got to be reliable. So something that's not reliable, if you're constantly doing the same condition, can't be valid. And you can see alpha unity and delta unity there, but alpha comad, very quickly we got rid of these. They were the two affected by drowsiness and so forth. Okay. So, okay, so we use what I like to call a two-story model to explain the Theta Unity results. So the Theta Unity results is, and I mentioned this in the other video, where we mature early on the first floor. The first floor is the limbic system and the reptile part of our brain, which was shown here in the yellow. And then we advance, we increase the neocortex gets involved in running the creature, as it were, and it has many more cells, so it can do much more nuanced processing. So when you go from the limbic system to the neocortical system, you go from what we call the relational system, relational thinking, you think everything's about you, to recognizing that things are independent of you, and only a few things may be relating to you. And we want to find a balance point between the two, and using more towards the independent, using more tissue to understand the nuances of what's going on, which is why, creatures that don't do are still relational. I spend a lot of energy wastefully, and that's what we want to stop in people, is we don't want them to waste their energy on effort that won't ever be rewarding. An example I always use is with dogs. Like dogs, when you hear where a car may honk, a dog dog's riding by in a car, and he thinks that honking is meant for him or her, and he starts barking back. Or when you walk into in a hallway and there's someone walking the dog, and the dog orients at you and looks at you and doing like very nervous about you, bouncing around, making sure you're not going to come towards, that you're not a threat to it. And it's like, of course, you're just going to walk into the elevator. You're not doing anything. You have no relation to that dog, but the dog is in relational mode, and that's why it wastes all that energy. Okay. So we don't want people to be wasting all that energy, and think of it like there's a balance between how much effort you put in and how much reward you get back out. So if you put in a lot of effort but you don't get reward, it's the who moved my cheese situation. You did all this effort and now you got nothing for it, and life is not good. So the goal is to get the effort to reward balanced. So you'll get as much reward as you can get with the minimum amount of effort in some respect, or the optimum amount of effort. Okay, and I like using this little model of the limbic system. The limbic system in charge. It's me versus everyone else. It's me versus, I'm relating to everything's about me, but it's in a threatening mode most of the time. It's versus me. However, there's the group-minded creature, and that's what we want to get. We want to get that balance point. The cortical system is integrated in with the limbic and modulating it. So it isn't just all relating. It's object thinking. It's independent thinking. Okay, and then now to look at how it is in the person, we have this. We're going to start looking at Theta Unity, which is a measure of how much the subcortex is dominating a function, a brain area, and the function it serves. And we want to typically not have the yellow and orange colors. We want to get to that green color. And we start off with the EEG, and this guy was named Ruger. It's a fictional name, but he very anxious. And you can just look at his EEG. Even his EEG, you can see some differences here. After 40 hours of training, I think that's actually 20 hours of training. I'm thinking about. I have to go look it up. But you can see more alpha activity, just generally. Now, I just took a snippet of 10 seconds, but he's got alpha here. But now, oh my God, much more relaxed, because there shouldn't be doing much. His eyes closed. There's not much going on. Now, when you look at Theta Unity measures, the first thing, you can get really marked differences. Now, he had literally this measure that this is associated, which I mentioned in a previous video, is associated with psychotic risk. It's and associated with anxiety and depression, especially severe depression, anxiety. It come in. The more severe it is, the more likely this is orange, and this is severely orange. And look at how it's headed towards the healthier state. Other areas had normalized as well. This usually does. The good news is that even though this is strong neuromarker, we can change it easily, readily. This is like the singlets are too much in charge, and we just do this one protocol, FC design equal PZ and COMOD training, and so that it breaks apart, like I say, this locked singlet, so that it now starts connecting to the other areas. And that was what's going on. That was in 2 weeks' time. All right, this is another case actually. And a lot of times we sometimes say pre-post, but in a way, a lot of times it's pre-mid, because we record the first we record before we determine what to train the person, and then we do about 30 hours of training with maybe 10, 15, 20 hours left, depending how severe the cases are. Sometimes we go up to even 80 hours total for addiction, really severe cases. But so we're not really recording at the end of the treatment. We're recording about 3/4 the way in, so that we know, okay, for the remaining 10 or 15 hours, where should we dedicate? Like, for instance, with this person has singlet issues, was very anxious, very childish kind of person at one point, and we're still not completely done. You know, we're not recording a brain map every time we train them, so we don't know exactly when we're done. We estimate how many sessions, probably estimate like 6, and she needed more like 8, so we needed 2 more, 2 or 3, 4 more. And that is severe neuromarker, as I showed in the previous video. It's associated with psychotic risk. It was verified, and I saw it in my death row inmate subset. Okay, this is now going back to Ruger again, and you can see how well he improved. And in the middle of his head, he has this is involved in personal boundaries, area 5, and sometimes panic disorder, and sometimes it's a stress marker, and some issues going on here. And look at that normalization. Oh, that's so beautiful. After just 20 hours, 2 weeks time. This is another person, Ava. This is the one, actually, I guess I should have got a little out of sequence, because this is the one who was what I call delayed adulthood, very childish. And you can see how more alpha peak. That's what we want to get. It's in the eyes closed condition, we want more alpha peak within just a few months. We're going, the red is from February, the blue is May. There's 19 regions, and reduction of the low frequency. We want an increase of the alpha peak. That's our goal during the eyes closed condition. Here's the front of the head. Making decisions. You want to have agency. Think of the alpha as how much agency you have. Well, she had very little agency. Everything kind of to the left of 6 is either relational thinking or childish sort of disconnection from the environment, what we call decortication. And it's hard to get rid of that one. We're still trying to find ways to remove the delta activity, but you can see the alpha peak happening, and that's in decision making. And she also had harmonics, which we're going to get to, which are being reduced. The harmonics are that other. We can get to it more in some other people. Okay, this is still her. Now, the interesting thing, look at how severe this was. She had this is actually a PTSD marker. This is a trust issue. She still got what we saw, a social anxiety marker. This thing is still, you can say, this compensation going on. As this area that's, in a way, she made her childish. Lily probably, this is sort of a sign of her mom always being around, or she's always believing her mom's going to take care of her. As she's now redistributing her ways and healthier ways, certain ones still haven't gotten there fully. There's certain responses happening. So that's where we do the additional work. Again, this was a pre and a mid. We still have about 10, 15 hours of work to help get that to the green. And we'll go right back there too, because I had the material. It was this one that was the real problem. This is the Spectroplasty now compared to the healthy norms. You can see some improvements. The dark blue, less so. Pink, less so. So there is that going on. And this is another individual. This person had all kinds of problems, and very anxious just even talking to me. And you can see these harmonics, social brain out here on the right hemisphere. This decisions, your sort of singular sense of self, just the harmonics. And this is after 40 hours of training, got better. Here's the front of the head. You can see those harmonics going away, and the peak happening in the alpha. Still hard to get rid of that delta, that decortication element. That's hard to get rid of. But you can't really just train it down. It's like trying to train a gas to behave. I like to say when you try to train delta. The only way is sort of, you got to pull up the middle, pull up that alpha peak, and then a lot of times that will help reduce some of it, but it is hard to get rid of. All right, now here's a person, Vanessa, has a lot of anxiety, but not really a harmonic problem. And so we'll see what else is going on with that person. So not everyone has harmonics, is the point.